Imagine coming home after risking your life for your country, only to find your bank account empty. Your wife, the person you trusted most, has disappeared with every penny you saved. This isn't just another story. It's my reality. Stay with me, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about trust, betrayal, and the true meaning of justice. By the end of this video, you'll understand why sometimes the darkest moments in our lives can lead to the most unexpected blessings. When I first met Sarah at that crowded bar in San Diego, I never imagined I'd be telling this story 5 years later. Her laugh was what caught my attention, genuine, unrestrained, infectious. I was a young Marine, fresh out of training, still believing I could take on the world. She was a college student studying psychology, fascinated by the human mind. The irony of that still haunts me to this day. We hit it off immediately. Within 6 months, we were married. Young love, impulsive, passionate, and in our case, ultimately destructive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When I received orders for my first deployment to Afghanistan, we had been married for just under a year. The night before I left, we sat on our small apartment balcony, counting stars and making plans. We calculated that with my combat pay and careful saving, we could put away nearly $40,000 during my 9-month deployment. Enough for a down payment on a modest home when I returned. "Promise me you'll be safe," she whispered as we headed to bed. "Promise me you'll be here when I get back," I replied. She kissed me deeply and said, "Always." Life in a combat zone has a way of distilling everything down to its essence. Every video call with Sarah became my lifeline to normalcy. Every message, every care package, little anchors to the life I had temporarily left behind. She told me she was picking up extra shifts at the hospital where she worked as an aide to help with our savings goal. I was so proud of her sacrifice, her commitment to our future. I'll never forget that scorching July afternoon when our base came under heavy fire. As bullets ricocheted off sandbags and the acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air, all I could think about was the small photo of Sarah I kept in my chest pocket. The thought of never seeing her again, never building that life we'd planned, it made me fight harder to survive. The last 2 months of my deployment, communication became spotty. Sarah started missing our scheduled calls. Her messages grew shorter, sometimes just a quick "miss you" or "stay safe." I chalked it up to her increased work hours or poor connection on my end. The mind has a fascinating way of creating explanations that protect us from truths we're not ready to face. The day I returned to American soil, I expected to see her waiting with the other families. She wasn't there. I called her phone, straight to voicemail. A cold sensation settled in my stomach as I took a taxi to our apartment. The place was half empty. Her clothes were gone. Her favorite books, her collection of vintage vinyl records, vanished. On our kitchen table sat a handwritten note. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Please don't try to find me." Confused and desperate, I logged into our joint bank account on my phone. The balance, $212.47. Our savings account, 0.0. The account history showed a withdrawal of $38,750 3 days earlier. The room seemed to spin around me. 9 months of danger, of watching friends die, of pushing through exhaustion and fear, all while she was planning her escape with every dollar we had saved. I slid down against the wall, still in my uniform, and did something I hadn't done even during the worst firefights. I broke down completely. The next few days passed in a blur. I filed a police report, but since we were married and it was a joint account, there wasn't much they could do. It wasn't technically theft in the eyes of the law. I called her parents, her friends. Nobody had seen her or knew where she'd gone. Or at least that's what they claimed. I took emergency leave and moved in with my brother temporarily. The betrayal was total. Not just the money, but the abandonment without explanation. The questions haunted me. Was it something I did? Was there someone else? Was any of it real? Or had I just been a convenient target from the beginning? Then came the credit card statements. Apparently, Sarah had opened 3 new credit cards in my name during my deployment. The total damage, another $22,000. My credit score plummeted. The debt collectors started calling. The life I had fought to come home to was not just gone. It had been systematically destroyed. I entered a dark period, started drinking too much, sleeping too little. My commanding officer noticed and mandated counseling. I resisted at first. What could some stranger possibly say to make this situation better? But military orders are military orders. Dr. Michaels was not what I expected. A Vietnam veteran himself, he cut through my defenses with the precision of someone who had seen the depths of human suffering and found his way back. "You have every right to be angry," he told me during our third session. "But you have to decide, will this define you or refine you?" Those words hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so consumed by victimhood that I'd forgotten my own resilience, the same resilience that had carried me through firefights and fallen comrades. That night I made two decisions. First, I would stop looking for Sarah. Whatever demons drove her to do what she did were her burden to bear. Second, I would rebuild from zero, not just financially, but emotionally. I enrolled in a financial management course offered on base. I worked with a military legal aid attorney to dispute the fraudulent credit cards. I took on extra duties for additional pay. Every dollar I could spare went toward clearing the legitimate debts. 6 months after my return, I received a Facebook message from an unfamiliar name, Jessica Winters. "You don't know me," it read, "but I think my boyfriend is engaged to your wife." My hands trembled as I called the number she provided. Jessica's voice was hesitant, scared. She had discovered photos of Sarah with a man she recognized as her long-distance boyfriend, Mark. The timestamp showed they were together during my deployment. Further digging revealed their engagement announcement in a local paper from Mark's hometown in Oregon. Sarah was using her middle name and her mother's maiden name, but Jessica was certain it was the same woman. "He's a successful investment banker," Jessica explained, "and he has no idea she's still legally married to you." The revelation should have reignited my anger, but strangely I felt only a profound sadness. Sadness for Mark, who was clearly Sarah's next target, and even sadness for Sarah herself, whose life seemed built on deception. I thanked Jessica and asked what she planned to do. "I'm meeting him for dinner tonight to show him everything I found," she said. "He deserves to know the truth just like you did." 2 weeks later, Mark himself called me. His voice was steady but strained. He had confronted Sarah with the evidence, and she had initially denied everything. When he persisted, she broke down and admitted to still being married to me, to taking my money, to the credit card fraud. She had been planning to do the same to him eventually. Marry, accumulate assets, then disappear with everything she could take. "She's sick," Mark said. "Not evil, sick. She needs help." It turned out Mark had resources I didn't. He hired a private investigator who uncovered Sarah's pattern. I wasn't her first victim. There had been 2 others before me, though on a smaller scale. The PI also discovered where she had hidden the money, an account in her grandmother's name in Arizona. Mark asked if I would join him in pressing charges. The evidence he had gathered, combined with my documentation, made for a compelling case. After days of consideration, I agreed. Not out of vengeance, but because sometimes true compassion means creating consequences that might finally break a destructive cycle. The legal process was grueling. Sarah hired an expensive attorney who tried to paint her as a victim of PTSD by proxy, claiming my deployment had traumatized her into irrational behavior. But the pattern established with her previous victims undermined this defense. In the end, she accepted a plea deal: financial restitution, 3 years probation and mandatory psychiatric treatment. The day of her sentencing, I saw her in person for the first time since my deployment. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Our eyes met briefly across the courtroom. There was no anger in her gaze, no defiance, just a vast emptiness that made my heart ache despite everything she had done. The judge ordered her to repay every dollar she had taken from me. The money was recovered from her grandmother's account and returned within weeks. I suddenly had nearly $40,000 back in my possession, the down payment we had once dreamed about together. But I no longer wanted a house, at least not yet. The experience had changed my priorities. With my commanding officer's blessing, I used part of the money to enroll in weekend college courses in financial counseling. My new mission was clear: to help other service members protect themselves from financial exploitation during deployment. I created a workshop called Secure Homefront that quickly gained attention within my unit. Soon I was being asked to present it across different battalions. The program expanded to include resources for families, early warning signs of financial infidelity, and protective measures service members could take before deployment. A year later, I received a letter from an address I didn't recognize in Minnesota. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a brief note: "This won't make up for what I did, but it's a start. I'm getting the help I need now. I'm sorry. It was signed simply S. I never cashed that check. Instead, I had it framed as a reminder that healing takes many forms, and that sometimes making amends is more important for the perpetrator than the victim. I had already moved forward. As for Mark and Jessica, they're actually getting married next spring. I'm going to be a groomsman. Strange how life works out sometimes. Today, the Secure Home Front program has been adopted by bases across the country. I've counseled hundreds of service members and their families. The betrayal that once nearly destroyed me has become the foundation for work that gives my life profound meaning. Last month, I finally used the rest of that returned money for its original purpose, a down payment on a home. It's not the house Sarah and I had once planned to buy. It's smaller, but it's on 2 acres of land with a view of the mountains. Sometimes in the evening I sit on my porch watching the sunset, paint those peaks gold and purple, and I feel a sense of peace I once thought impossible. I recently started dating again too. Melissa is a high school teacher who volunteers with military families. She knows my whole story, and her patience as I work through my lingering trust issues has been nothing short of remarkable. When people hear my story, they often ask if I'm angry at Sarah. The honest answer is no, not anymore. I'm grateful. Not for the betrayal, the theft, or the lies, but for the person I've become because of them. Sometimes our greatest growth comes from our deepest wounds. I've learned that resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about finding purpose within it. Every time I help a young service member protect their financial future, every time I see the relief in their eyes when they realize they're not alone in their concerns, I'm reminded that our darkest chapters don't have to be the end of our story. The money Sarah took was just money. What I've gained in its place, purpose, wisdom, community, is beyond price. I still have the note she left on our kitchen table, not as a reminder of betrayal, but as evidence of how far I've come from that moment of complete devastation. From the ashes of what was taken, I've built something stronger, more meaningful, and ultimately more fulfilling than what I had originally planned. There's an old Japanese art called kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold. The philosophy behind it is that breakage is part of an object's history, not something to disguise. By highlighting the repair with precious metal, the piece becomes more beautiful, more valuable than it was before the damage. I think of my life in those terms now. The breaks are real. They happened. But the gold that now fills those cracks, the wisdom, compassion, and purpose that grew from my darkest moment, has created something far more precious than an unbroken life could ever be. So if you're watching this and you're in that broken place right now, whether from betrayal, loss, or failure, know this: it's not the end. It might in fact be the beginning of something far greater than you can currently imagine. The gold is coming. Your cracks will shine. As for Sarah, I heard she completed her treatment program and is working as an administrative assistant in a small accounting firm. She's under court supervision and making regular restitution payments to her other victims. I genuinely hope she finds peace and creates a life built on truth rather than deception. We all have chapters we wish we could rewrite. The key is to make sure they're not the final chapter. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if she had simply talked to me about whatever she was going through, if she had been honest about her struggles, her dissatisfaction, her needs. Communication might not have saved our marriage, but it could have spared both of us so much pain. That's another lesson I share in my workshops. Relationships, like military operations, fail most often due to communication breakdowns. The words we're afraid to say are usually the ones most needed. 3 years after my return from deployment, I received another unexpected message, this time from Sarah's mother. Sarah had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. She was on medication in intensive therapy and doing better than she had in years. She had asked her mother to tell me she was sorry, truly sorry, for everything. I sent back a simple response: I forgive you. Take care of yourself. And I meant it. Forgiveness isn't about excusing the behavior or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about refusing to carry the weight of anger and resentment into your future. It's a gift you give yourself more than the person who wronged you. Last week, I completed the final payment on those fraudulent credit card debts. My credit score has recovered. The financial scars, like the emotional ones, have healed. There will always be faint marks where the wounds were deepest, but they no longer limit what I can do or who I can become. The commander who originally ordered me to counseling attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony when Secure Home Front opened its first permanent office near base. He pulled me aside afterward and said, "When I sent you to Dr. Michaels, I was just trying to keep a good Marine from self-destructing. I never imagined you'd build all this from that pain." Neither did I. But that's the thing about rock bottom. It's a solid foundation to build upon. I keep a journal now, something Dr. Michaels suggested years ago that I've maintained. The first entry, written in shaky handwriting during those dark initial days, reads simply, "I don't know how to survive this." The most recent entry, written just yesterday, reads, "I'm grateful for this life, all of it, even the parts that broke me. And I am. Grateful for the deployment that showed me my strength, grateful for the betrayal that revealed my resilience, grateful even for Sarah, who through her worst actions ultimately led me to my best self." So if you're watching this from your own personal battlefield, whether it's betrayal, loss, failure, or something else entirely, hold on. Your story isn't over. The chapter you're in right now, no matter how dark, is not the final one. There's still time for plot twists you can't imagine, for character development that will transform you, for triumphs that will rise from these ashes. Trust me on this. I've been where you are. The dawn is coming, even if all you can see right now is darkness. Before I go, I'd love to hear from you. Rate this story from 1 to 10 in the comments below and let me know where you're watching from. Your feedback helps me create more content that resonates with you. And if you or someone you know has experienced something similar, remember that sharing your story can be the first step toward healing. Until next time, stay resilient, stay hopeful, and know that your best chapters may still be unwritten.